Why he let Josephine talk him into attending another ball, David would never know, especially given everything that he and Dorian had endured the last time they had been to Halam-Sharal. Though he would never complain about having the handsome man there, right at his side. He would complain even less when they would be able to sneak away from the public's eye. Behind the two walked Blackwell and Cassandra, both looking entirely uncomfortable. David would be sympathetic had he not told them that if he had to be dragged to this event, he would ensure that they would be just as miserable as he. If it weren't for Dorian's guidance, he would be hopelessly lost in the word games of court. David was a man of action. He knew it, he knew that Josephine knew it, and he had some inkling that this was her way of forcing him to break outside of the image he had begun creating for himself. So here they were, once again dressed in the Inquisition's formal attire, ready to face a gaggle of potential allies and foes, all hiding behind masks. The group had chosen to stick close to each other, rather than splitting up as they had during the Grand Duchess's ball. I had hoped that our ambassador would have been able to splurge for something a little less garish than these dreadful uniforms. Dorian's dulcet tones are tinged with distaste. Tch! These uniforms are unpractical. Cassandra sighs in disgust. They make us stick out like a sore thumb, easier to target. We don't have to stay long. Josephine said that we needed to make contact with the Marquis Etienne. Then we can take our drinks and leave. David muttered, trying to shift the formal jacket to fit a little less tightly across his shoulders. He had a feeling that Josephine had had the jacket taken in after a few choice comments from Orlesian nobles in regards to his stature, but he had no proof, and Lendliana had only done that infuriating smile when he had asked. The group moved as one across the grand entryway, heading towards the doors that led to the ballroom, doing their best to ignore the stares and whispers directed at them. "The Lady Seeker! A Magister, Wardens never look. His Lordship!" What felt like a million voices fading into the background, making David's skin crawl. It was only the slight pressure of Dorian's fingers against his own that kept him grounded. He gave the Tevinter's hand a squeeze in return, then moved to give their invitation to the page at the doors. Music floating just beyond the heavy wood, the sound of violins and harps accompanied by a masculine voice. As the doors open, the page's voice rings out. "His Lordship, David Trevelyan, Inquisitor, Herald of Andraste, accompanied by the Seeker, Cassandra Pentagast, right hand of the Divine, Warden Blackwall, and his Lordship Dorian Pavus, scion of House Pavus, Altus of the Imperium." David couldn't help but feel relieved at the relatively short introduction. "Better than that droning on the last one did." Blackwell huffed a short chuckle, apparently sharing David's feelings on the matter. "I'm just glad that he did not attempt to add all the honorifics, though I do love watching all the Orlesians squirm." Smirking, Dorian raises his chin to look down on all those staring. "Come on, let's go meet with the Marquis so we can attempt to enjoy the rest of our evening." David's quiet voice barely carrying over the music. They moved through the crowds with the ease of experienced veterans, dodging their way through the packed ballroom until they had made it to the dais where their host sat upon his throne. The space behind him was hidden behind a veil, the silhouettes of the musicians visible just behind the thin cloth. The accompanying voice falling high and low with each note, soaring with emotions that the instruments couldn't capture. "Ah, Lord Inquisitor, what a deep honor it is to have you attend my little soiree. I do so apologize for the hasty invitations. However, it would seem as though I require your help." Marquis d'Etienne bowed graciously before his guests, waving them closer with a sweep of his hand. "Of course you do. Everyone seems to these days." David dips his head in acknowledgement of the other noble. Yes, well," the Marquis stutters, caught off guard by the Inquisitor's blasé attitude. "It would seem as though the Grand Duchess was not the only sympathizer in Orlais. I have heard whispers of those among the Council of Heralds, whom have also pledged their loyalty to Corypheus." Would this information not have been better placed into Liliana's hands? David interrupts the Marquis's rambling, wondering why exactly this needed his immediate attention. He catches the disgusted sigh Cassandra utters behind him, and Blackwell's accompanying chuckle. "Why, the Lady Nightingale is of course more than capable of handling the matter were it not so pressing. You see, I believe that I have managed to capture one such traitor this eve." Excitement bubbled up in the Marquis's voice. eyes lighting up behind the ornate mask. You see, he had been invited long before any rumors. David holds up a hand. Stop the man once more. You mean to tell me that you brought me here to play spy on your behalf, if not vigilante? Why, my dear Inquisitor, you do get invited to the most amusing little parties. David can feel Dorian's smirk spreading without having to look at him. Taking a deep breath, hand still held to keep the Marquis from any further ramblings, the Inquisitor shakes his head in dismay. What had he ever done to deserve this? Fine, we are here anyways, might as well get this over with. Grumbling, David looks to the rest of his companions, watching as they nod in agreement. What's the man's name? I do not wish to speak aloud, in case my informant is wrong. However, the Marquis snaps his fingers in the direction of the veil. When he does, the voice ceases its singing. There's a rustling sound as the shadow moves closer to the material, pressing it to the side. From behind the veil comes a pale elf, elegantly dressed in a robe of purple and silver silk, black lace collar tied around his neck. Vous m'avez demandé, Monsieur Marquis? The delicate voice calls out, making David's mouth go dry. He knew that voice. David lifted his gaze to watch the elf's face, his expression quickly turning to disbelief. Yes, Cleandre, allow me to introduce you to his lordship, David Trevelyan, the Inquisitor. The Marquis took Cleandre's extended hand in his own, holding it as delicately as one might hold fine china. My Lord Inquisitor, allow me to introduce you to one of my favorite companions, and an entertainer of no small talent, Cleandre of Les Matins d'Opale. Cleandre's face lit up, a sly smile playing out on full lips. Monsieur Trevelyan, how pleasant it is to see you again. Swallowing hard, David bows his head to Cleandre, ignoring the heated glances exchanged by his companions. Ah, you know each other, of course. The laughter accompanying the Marquis's exclamation made David's chest tighten, his face heating. With anger or embarrassment, he couldn't quite tell. That makes it easier, then. Cleandre was the one who advised me of the possible travesty one of his patrons made him aware of their loyalties. Of course, he had expected my silence, but he did not realize that I would never betray my country. Les hommes ne croient jamais les êtres capables de dont ils ne sont pas eux-mêmes. Cleandre ensured that I was made aware of this, and was able to act swiftly enough to have you summoned here. And while the Marquis is more than willing to entertain my ideas, the Council of Heralds might have other ideas regarding my credibility as a witness, considering my particular line of work. Cleandre shrugs his shoulders delicately, waving off the discussion with a precise flick of his wrist. I can see how that might affect things. Blackwell's voice rumbled with amusement at the situation. David refused to turn around, more afraid of seeing Dorian's face at the turn of events. So, you want us to hunt down the man and get a confession out of him? Cassandra inquires. I have heard that this is not the first time you and the Inquisitor have hunted down criminals who would otherwise escape the law in these tumultuous times, the Marquis counters. Wine, intrigue, and spies hidden as entertainment. Are we quite sure we haven't wandered into Deventer this time? The edge to his voice belied Dorian's teasing statements. I did so miss this little aspect of the little parties at home. Perhaps we shall next visit a den of iniquity, or a den of blunt mages. Would make me feel ever so at home. All right. I suppose we should get to work, then. David runs a hand through his long hair, pushing it back from his face. Cleandre smirks, and reaches out to push back an escaping lock behind David's ear. The gentle touch enough to send chills down David's skin, memories flashing too quickly through his mind. Blackwell's not-so-delicate cough quickly bringing him back to the present. Pulling back, David turns to face his companions. It is probably best if we don't talk about this out in the open. Why don't we take a stroll through the gardens? I believe I saw an orchard in that direction. Waiting for acknowledgement of each, he then moves forward at a brisk pace, not wanting this experience to last longer than it had to. He knew that Dorian would have questions, especially given Cleandre's actions toward himself. He also knew that Cleandre deserved more than the semi-cold treatment he had given the elf thus far. but the middle of a crowded room, with a man nearby who possibly wanted him dead on Corypheus's behalf, was not the place that David had envisioned for either conversation. He turned his head as he felt his fingertips brush his, knowing instantly that they did not belong to the man who now owned his heart. Cleandre leaned in, breath now tickling David's neck. "Mon chéri, it would appear that you have quite changed since I last saw you. You have a different, comment dites-vous, aura about you." Smiling warmly, a hand pressed to David's bicep. The pressure of that hand was familiar and friendly, but David knew that he should pull away. "Yes. Come now, mon chéri. There should be no blood between we two. Have I done something to offend?" That musical voice held a note of hurt. No. You haven't done anything, David sighs, his eyes flicking back to land on Dorian's face. The smile coming to his lips was unplanned. He turns back to look down on the petite elf. "It cannot be as it was before between us. I appreciate what you did for me, but I am not blind." Cleandre presses his fingers to David's lips, smiling wide with the soft words. "It is not my desire to interfere, only to help." The rest of the walk is in silence. David wanted nothing more to wrap his arms around Dorian, to ensure that his lover knew who exactly had captured his heart, and possibly to continue this avenue of friendship that the petite elf had started them upon. When they reached the grove, the tall trees easily blocking them from view of anyone who did not go out of their way to spy upon them, each stopped. "So tell me, elf, what is it that you know about this supposed Venatori sympathizer?" Ever quick to get down to details, Cassandra crosses her arms as she glares down at Cleandre. "Many things cross lips that are no longer occupied by pleasant pastimes, my sweet lady." Raising a jaunty eyebrow, Cleandre meets Cassandra's glare, not faltering in the least, despite the woman's fierce reputation. "I think you are going to have to clarify that. Might just be me, but I get the feeling pillow talk isn't quite the answer that the lady seeker was looking for." Blackwall does his best to hide his smile behind his fist, under the guise of clearing his throat. "True, the Lord Marquis spoke truly. I am often called upon to entertain some of the higher nobility. I have been often praised for both my skills as an actor and a companion. One of the Council of Heralds has often summoned me to his winter home, when the nights grow cold." One such night, he felt more distant than usual. When I offered him compassion, he advised me that a certain person of unimaginable power was pressuring him to find a chink in the newfound hold that the Inquisition has over Orlais. Every word was clear and concise. There was no doubt that he spoke truly, only that he wished to provide the most accurate account of the event. Comte Lethar Ducy, not one of the better-known nobles, but still powerful enough that, should he choose to turn against Orlais, we may see yet another civil war ravage my dear country. "A shame, truly," Dorian huffed, "to see your country torn to little bits by those power-mad and willing to sacrifice their lessers." David couldn't take it any more. He pulled Dorian in tight to him, pressing the man to his chest. Arms wrapping against his shoulders, their lips pressed hard and tight together. He ignored the sound of Cassandra's dreamy sigh, and Blackwall's amused huff, the sound of Cleandre's pleased chuckle. He let himself focus only on Dorian, smiling at that soft whimper that escaped the Tevinter's lips. It felt like a lifetime. It felt like only a moment. When the two finally parted, David cut off Dorian's fussing. "Cleandre already told me he knew about us. Cassandra and Blackwall have put up with more than this for months now. I couldn't bear the guilt, thinking that you might be upset with me. This seemed the best way to show you that having someone from my past near did not affect our future. S'il vous plaît, une voix est fait passe. Do not worry about me, I beg you. It pleases me greatly to see my friend care for someone so deeply." Cleandre clasped Dorian's hands, pressing them to his chest. "I hope that, once this is taken care of, perhaps all three of us might be able to find some time away to talk, be merry. It might be my job to entertain others, but I swear it would be my pleasure to ensure that the both of you find some escape from all these terrible things." "I can't seem to tell if you are offering help or a hand." The tension slowly eases out of Dorian's shoulders. still held tightly by both David and Cleandre. His joke breaks any remaining doubts that David had. "Yes, well," Cassandra purses her lips, trying to hide the fact that she had swooned at the romantic display. "We cannot simply arrest the man without proof." "Perhaps," Blackwell's deep voice rumbles as he thinks his words through with care. "We can lay a trap. He has confessed to you once already. Shouldn't be difficult to get him to admit it once more." "I would prefer something in writing," David mumbles to himself, still wrapped up in Dorian. "Or hey, even having him attack us." "Sis nas pas grave. I can arrange for either. Just a few words at the right time, and boom." Cleandre imitated a small explosion with his hands, smiling Broadway. Dorian and David pulled away from each other, David watching the others consider this possibility. "It does have a certain charm to it." Smirking, Dorian raises an eyebrow. "And it would leave no room for misunderstandings that might let him escape the gallows." Blackwell nods, approval written clearly on his face. "Must we?" Rolling her eyes, Cassandra huffs in disgust. "Ugh, very well." A clear plan set out. The group had agreed that each individual should leave the grove in different directions, so as to not draw attention to themselves. Slowly they trickled away, until only Dorian, David, and Cleandre were left in the small clearing. While I cannot say that I am comfortable with this budding understanding, I admit that this is new to me, feeling jealousy, having someone to feel jealous over. Dorian chewed on his lips, even as he spoke, avoiding catching Cleandre's gaze. "So long as you understand that Dorian is off limits to your appetite, I suppose we shall have to learn how to deal with the rest." David slipped his hand into Dorian's, fingers intertwining. "Yes, of course. I would not dream to ruin what you might have with each other. Any past tryst is just that, past, though I am very happy to see David doing well. I was quite concerned when he did not keep his word to send me a letter. I am sorry. I didn't know what to say, or how to say it." David lets his gaze fall, feeling his cheeks heat with shame. "I didn't mean to, I just—" "Do not worry. I understand how it can be, ma chérie. I am not so naive as to believe that every sweet kiss holds a new hope. I am grateful that I was able to relieve you of your stress. More so to know that you did in fact think of me. But now we should focus on our prey. It is quite exciting. Perhaps I shall have to offer my service to the Inquisition more often." "I am certain we could find a use for them." David smiles lightly, meeting his friend's gaze. Now with pride. Even if they were not able to catch this particular fox, he was glad to know that he had one more friend he could count on. Such friends were far too few, as the world currently stood.